The twin suns of Draconis Prime were sinking behind jagged mountains, painting the city in molten gold. Towers of black stone reached toward the sky, their tips sharp as blades. Smoke from factories drifted across the air, mingling with the scent of molten metal and scorched earth. The streets below were crowded with humans, dragons, and half-dragons moving quickly, each with their own purpose. But in the royal district, silence hung like a heavy fog. Inside the palace, alarm bells rang, though quietly. The dragon lady, Seraphine, was dying. Her massive frame lay motionless on a bed of carved stone, her scales dull and cracked, eyes half closed. Even from a distance, her breath sounded weak and uneven. The royal family, perched in the gallery above, watched in tense silence, their faces pale. Panic simmered behind their composed expressions. Without her strength, the dragons of Draconis Prime would falter. The humans allied with them could be at risk, and the fragile peace between the species could shatter overnight. The healers moved quickly but carefully, their hands trembling as they applied remedies of herbs, energy crystals, and bioalchemical solutions. Each attempt failed to stabilize her condition. One healer whispered, "Her life is bound to the royal bloodline. If she dies, everything dies with her." Outside the chamber, a human mechanic named Kale Marin waited. He was young, wiry, and unassuming, with soot-stained hands and a streak of silver in his dark hair from too many late nights working in the city's industrial zones. He had been summoned not as a knight or scholar, but because of his unusual skill with alien tech and experimental biodevices. Many nobles considered him a curiosity at best, a liability at worst. But Kale carried something the court could not command: intuition, courage, and a mind willing to risk everything when others hesitated. Kale's pulse raced. He had never stood in a royal chamber before, let alone in the presence of dragons. His stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and resolve. "I can't fail," he whispered to himself, gripping the edges of his toolkit. "Not now. Not when the stakes are this high." The doors opened and Kale stepped into the chamber. Seraphine lay before him, enormous even in repose, her wings folded like dark sails. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone and burnt crystal, a residual warning of her dying energy. Kale knelt beside her, his eyes scanning her body, searching for the correct point of intervention. The royal family watched, their faces frozen, some with disbelief, others with barely contained anger. "Be careful," one of the dragon princes muttered. His voice was low, sharp, like gravel scraping stone. "One wrong move and you might kill her faster than the disease." Kale nodded, though his hands did not shake. He had no experience with royal dragons, but he had fixed worse things in his life. Machines, cyborg limbs, energy conduits, but never a living being, much less a creature of this power and history. Still, instinct told him what to do. His fingers hovered over a glowing device he had modified for biosynthesis, a small humming machine designed to stabilize cellular collapse. He could try to use it, or he could attempt direct intervention, something no human had dared before. The room fell silent except for Seraphine's shallow breaths. The healer stepped back, uneasy. Kale felt the weight of expectation press on him from every side. Even the walls seemed to lean closer, listening. He could feel the rhythm of her heart, erratic and faint, a pulse weaker than the smallest sparrow's. He had seconds to decide. Then a sudden tremor shook the palace. Dust fell from the ceiling and distant alarms echoed through the halls. Kale froze. The royal family's eyes widened. Some muttered in fear. "What now?" Kale asked himself, his voice low. The city beyond the palace walls was rarely calm, but this felt different. This was not industrial unrest or street crime, it was the distant roar of a rival dragon or some unknown threat testing the palace's defenses. Kale looked back at Seraphine. Her chest rose and fell slowly, each breath a fragile thread. The device in his hand could stabilize her, if it worked, but something inside him urged a different course. The human heart, he realized, might be more effective than any machine. He clenched his jaw. "I have to try it." Kale moved closer, every step deliberate, aware of the royal eyes on him. Sweat pricked his forehead. The tremor passed, but tension remained thick in the chamber. He knelt beside Seraphine, studying her broken energy flows, her flickering life force. He could feel it, faint but real. She wasn't gone yet, but she would be soon if nothing intervened. For a moment, Kale imagined what failure would look like. Seraphine's chest still, the royal family collapsing in despair, the dragons losing their leader, humans scrambling for survival. The thought tightened his chest, but it also strengthened his resolve. Fear was a tool, not a prison. Courage was necessary, and he would need more than courage alone. He would need instinct, intellect, and a willingness to risk everything. He extended a trembling hand toward her, uncertain if it would heal or harm. The royal family gasped as his palm brushed her cracked scales, and for a heartbeat nothing happened. Then something stirred, something faint yet alive. A spark of energy pulsed through her body, responding, shifting like a current finding its conductor. Cale's eyes widened. The glow was subtle at first, almost invisible, but it was there. It's working, he thought, but the glow flickered unpredictably. He realized the device wasn't needed, not yet. The human touch alone, his courage and intent, might be the key. A sudden roar echoed from deep within the palace walls, a warning, a threat, or perhaps a response from Seraphine herself. Cale's heart jumped. The royal family froze in awe and fear. All eyes were on him. One wrong move now and the consequences could be catastrophic. But if he succeeded? Cale gritted his teeth and held his hand steady. The spark pulsed stronger. Something ancient and powerful stirred inside Seraphine. The royal family leaned forward, unable to look away. The next moment would decide everything. Cale's hand hovered over Seraphine's cracked scales, feeling the faint pulse of life beneath them. It was slower than it should be, erratic like a storm barely holding together. The glow beneath his palm flickered, faint at first, then brightened in pulses, synchronized with his own heartbeat. The royal family leaned forward, eyes wide, their whispers filled with disbelief. He's touching her. How? One of the dragon princes muttered. The human mechanic's mind raced. Machines, chemicals, and ancient spells had all failed. But something about direct contact, the warmth of human skin, the steady rhythm of intention, was interacting with her bioenergy in a way no technology could. Cale's fingers tingled as the current ran through him. It was not just a physical sensation. It was alive, intelligent, resisting, yet responding. Don't let go, one of the healers warned, her voice trembling. She could collapse again. One mistake and her words trailed off, swallowed by the tension in the chamber. Cale didn't respond. He had no time for fear. Every second counted, and hesitation could kill Seraphine. A sudden shudder passed through the chamber, the walls rattling faintly. Alarms from the palace's outer defenses echoed, sharp and urgent. Cale froze, realizing the tremor he had felt before was no accident. Some force was moving against them. Likely raiders, or worse, a rival faction exploiting the Dragon Lady's weakness. If they breached the palace now, Seraphine could die, and with her, the fragile piece of the kingdom. He clenched his jaw. Fear clawed at his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Focus on her, not the alarms, he whispered to himself. The royal family watched, holding their breath as he concentrated on the rhythm of her life. The glow beneath his palm flickered again, growing stronger, though uneven. Cale noticed something subtle. Her bioenergy responded more to emotion than to pressure. When he focused not on mechanics but on hope, determination, and courage, the glow became steadier. When he panicked or doubted, it faltered. It was delicate, sensitive, almost alive. He realized he wasn't just stabilizing her, he was communicating with her through touch, through intent, and through the sheer force of human courage. Impossible, one of the dragon princes muttered under his breath. No human has ever done this before. Cale ignored the words. Praise or skepticism didn't matter. The dragon's life depended on him, and every second he wasted doubting could cost her everything. Suddenly, Seraphine twitched violently, convulsing against the touch. Cale's heart leapt. Her systems were unstable. The glow beneath his palm pulsed erratically. He tightened his grip, feeling the current surge through him. Pain shot up his arm, but he ignored it. This was bigger than him. This was survival. Then an idea struck. The device he had brought, the machine he had meant to use, wasn't useless. Not entirely. It could amplify the energy he was already channeling, but only if used correctly. One wrong adjustment and it could overload her, causing death. But if calibrated precisely, it could strengthen the bond between his human energy and her dragon biology. Cale worked quickly, his hands shaking but precise. He connected the device to her energy nodes, letting it hum softly. At first, the flickering light didn't change. Then, slowly, the glow stabilized, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. Seraphine's chest rose more steadily. Her wings twitched. A low rumble echoed from her throat, not anger but recognition, awareness, and the faintest whisper of trust. The royal family gasped audibly. Their expressions shifted from disbelief to awe. He's saving her, the healer breathed. With nothing but himself and instinct? But Cale didn't have time to notice their reactions. The tremor outside had returned, stronger now, followed by the distant clash of weapons against the palace gates. Raiders or rival dragons had come, sensing weakness. The palace walls could hold for only a little while longer. Every second Kale spent on Seraphine was also a second the attackers could exploit. Kale's chest tightened. He had stabilized her for now, but it wouldn't last unless he could guide her own energy to heal. And that required even more effort, more connection, and more risk. If he failed, she could die mid-healing. If he succeeded, he might pull her back from the edge of death. He swallowed hard and pressed both hands firmly against her chest. This time he shut out fear, doubt, and distraction. Only intention remained. Only determination. Only human courage. He let his heartbeat synchronize with hers, letting every ounce of willpower flow through his hands. The glow expanded, bright and steady, moving from her chest along her limbs, her wings, her spine. Kale felt the life returning, fragile but strong enough to fight. She trembled, lifting her massive head slightly. Her eyes, dull moments ago, now flickered with color, deep gold and intelligence. A roar erupted from her throat, deep and resonant. It shook the chamber, rattling chandeliers and sending a shiver through the royal family. Kale stumbled back slightly, overwhelmed by the power surging from her. The moment was electric and it was clear. Seraphine was responding. But the palace alarms shrieked louder. The distant sounds of attack drew closer. Kale's focus was on her, yet he could not ignore the threat building outside. He realized the challenge wasn't just healing her, it was protecting her and the palace at the same time. Every second counted. One misstep and all of them could die. Kale looked up at the royal family. Their faces reflected fear, awe, and hope all at once. Then, almost instinctively, he whispered, "Hold on. I won't let her die." The next moment would demand more courage, more skill, and more human determination than any of them could imagine. Kale could feel every heartbeat of Seraphine beneath his hands. The glow of her bioenergy had strengthened, but it was still fragile, like glass teetering on the edge of shattering. His arms ached, sweat stinging his eyes, but he didn't dare move. Around him, the royal family hovered, frozen in awe, watching as a human, a mechanic from the lower city, held the life of their greatest dragon in his hands. The alarms outside blared again, louder this time. Shouts echoed from the palace gates. The attackers were growing bolder, pushing closer. Kale's focus couldn't waver. Every second counted. Seraphine's pulse flickered as if sensing the intrusion. The dragon convulsed slightly, a low growl vibrating through her massive body. Her bioenergy was volatile, reacting to fear as much as to hope. Kale realized then what he had been missing. He had been thinking like a mechanic, relying on devices, wires, and artificial stabilizers. But Seraphine wasn't a machine. She was alive in a way that no human invention could replicate. Her life force responded to courage, empathy, and intent. His fear could weaken her. His hope could strengthen her. He needed to give her not just energy but confidence, trust, that she could fight back herself. He closed his eyes and centered himself. The palace, the royal family, the attackers outside, they were all background noise. There was only her and him. He focused every thought on survival, every pulse of his heartbeat on determination. Slowly he felt a shift under his hands. The erratic sparks of light steadied, flowing along her limbs and wings like molten gold. Her chest rose more evenly. Her eyes, half-lidded before, now opened fully, glowing faintly with life. Then came the convulsion. Seraphine's body arched violently. Kale stumbled, almost losing his grip. A wave of energy surged from her core, lashing out in all directions. The royal family ducked, shielding themselves from the sudden light. Kale's hands burned as if he had plunged into fire, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. This was the moment that would decide everything. Something shifted deep inside him. He understood now. She wasn't simply receiving energy, she was responding to it. Her body was learning, adapting, feeding on his courage and translating it into her own healing. His mind raced. If he could push her just a little further, if he could guide the flow with precision, she might not just survive, she could recover fully, even stronger than before. Kale acted. He adjusted the position of his hands, feeling along the channels of her bioenergy like a conductor guiding an orchestra. The faint pulsing became rhythmic, almost musical. He whispered softly words of encouragement, not because she could understand, but because the vibration of sound carried through her scales, through the energy flowing in her veins. The glow spread from her chest to her wings, spine, and tail. Color returned to her scales. Tiny sparks of light flickered across her wings, evidence of the life returning. The royal family gasped again. "He's doing it, the human is doing it," one whispered. Some knelt, unable to look away from the impossible sight. Kale ignored them. His focus was absolute. But just as hope blossomed, the palace trembled violently. A massive impact shook the outer wall. The attackers were here. Kale's ears rang from the crash of metal and stone. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the glow beneath his hands flickered dangerously. Seraphine's body shivered. She was responding, but now external forces threatened to undo everything. Kale's mind raced. There was no time for fear. He had an idea, dangerous but possibly the only option. He drew energy not just from himself but from the surrounding room. He guided it through the device he had originally brought, using it as a conduit. It amplified the human intent he had poured into her. Sparks flew from the device as it hummed and vibrated, but Kale held on. Pain shot through his arms, but he blocked it out. Courage, not safety, was the currency now. A sudden surge of light shot from Seraphine's chest. The roar that followed was unlike anything Kale had ever heard. It shook the palace, reverberating through walls, corridors, and even the streets outside. The attackers faltered, some stumbling back as if the sound itself was a weapon. Seraphine's eyes glowed fully, golden and fierce, a spark of her ancient power returning. She lifted her head, scanning the chamber, and Kale realized she was awake, aware, and ready. Kale nearly collapsed, exhaustion overwhelming him, but he forced himself to stay kneeling. She needed more than his courage, she needed action. Seraphine flexed her massive wings, and a pulse of energy shot outward, scattering debris and knocking intruders back. The royal family cheered, but Kale couldn't celebrate yet. One misstep now and everything could fall apart. He adjusted his hands again, guiding the energy to stabilize her fully. Her breathing steadied, the golden glow spreading evenly across her massive body. Kale felt a shift under his palms. She was no longer fragile, no longer dependent solely on him. She was healing herself now, stronger and more vibrant than before. The surge of life was visible, almost radiant, filling the chamber. Kale's knees buckled, but he forced himself upright. He had done it. He had guided her back from the edge of death. The royal family erupted in astonished applause, but Kale barely noticed. He focused on Seraphine, who now looked at him with eyes that carried understanding, recognition, and gratitude. But outside, the alarms blared louder. The threat wasn't gone. Kale's body shook with fatigue, but his mind was already calculating. The palace might survive, but only if he could act quickly. Healing Seraphine had been the first challenge. Now came the second, defending the kingdom from those who would exploit her weakness. Kale looked up at the royal family. Their expressions mirrored fear and hope. He realized then that being human meant more than skill, it meant choice, courage, and determination. They could not rely on dragons alone. They needed him. Kale clenched his fists, energy still thrumming faintly through his palms. "I won't let them take her," he whispered. "Not while I'm here." And with that, the next stage of the battle began, testing human ingenuity, courage, and heroism like never before. The palace shook again as another heavy blow struck the outer walls. Kale's muscles ached, his lungs burned, but he could not falter. Seraphine now stood, her wings unfurling slowly, each scale glinting in the light of her revived energy. Her chest rose steadily, golden veins of power pulsing along her spine. The royal family stepped back, awe frozen on their faces. For a moment, the chamber felt like sacred ground, the air humming with raw life. Kale knew better. The danger outside hadn't vanished. The rival faction had come for her weakness. Every second he had spent healing Seraphine had been a race against time, and the battle was now at the gates. The human instinct that had saved her was not enough. He needed action, strategy, courage, and quick thinking. "Stay behind me," Kale said firmly to the royal family. His voice carried authority despite the exhaustion in his body. "Do not interfere. I'll handle this." The dragons in the chamber stirred, sensing Seraphine's renewed strength. Some flexed their claws, others beat wings cautiously. Kale's eyes darted to the device he had used earlier. It could amplify energy, even project a pulse outward. But to do so would risk overloading both him and Seraphine if mismanaged. Still, hesitation now meant disaster. The outer gate burst inward with a roar of splintering wood and metal. Shadowy figures surged forward, humanoid shapes clad in armor, moving with unnatural speed. Kale's stomach tightened. They were fast, organized, and clearly armed with energy weapons that could tear through the palace defenses. If Seraphine didn't act quickly, they could overwhelm her, or worse, him. Kale grabbed the device, adjusting the energy channels. He positioned it at the center of the chamber, connecting it to Seraphine's flowing bioenergy. Sparks flew, light crackling through the room like lightning. His arms trembled under the strain. Sweat stung his eyes, but he blocked it out. This was no longer just healing. This was defense, offense, and survival rolled into a single desperate gamble. "Now, Seraphine," he shouted. "Strike together." The dragon responded immediately. She lunged forward, wings stretching wide, energy flaring from her core. Kale directed the device's amplified pulse into her, synchronizing with her movements. A wave of golden light shot from her claws and wings, sweeping across the chamber and spilling into the corridor beyond. The attackers faltered, thrown off balance, their energy weapons short-circuiting under the sheer force of the bioenergy. Kale felt the pulse surging through him. Pain lanced his arms, but he gritted his teeth and focused. Every ounce of courage, every calculation of energy flow, every bit of human ingenuity mattered. If he misjudged, they could explode both him and Seraphine. But he trusted his instincts. He had seen her respond before. He knew her energy was alive, adaptive. He only needed to guide it. The attackers regrouped, rushing again with even greater fury. Kale's heart pounded. Seraphine's wings beat like thunder, her claws tearing through doors and barricades, energy rippling from her body like shockwaves. The golden light illuminated every corner of the chamber, bathing him in warmth and danger at once. He adjusted the energy flow in real time, balancing amplification with stability, pushing the dragon to her full potential without breaking her. The royal family watched, wide-eyed, some shielding their faces from the brilliance. "He's controlling it," whispered one. "A human, controlling a dragon?" Kale didn't have time to reply. The attackers were closing in from multiple angles. Using the device as a conduit, he directed Seraphine's energy outward, creating a force field that pulsed like living light. Every attack that struck it dissipated harmlessly, thrown back by the amplified bioenergy. The attackers screamed, some fleeing, others overwhelmed by the raw power of a dragon guided by human intent. Kale's body screamed for rest, but he ignored it. His mind was razor-sharp, calculating the next move. He needed to finish this decisively. Seraphine trusted him. She was stronger than ever, but without his guidance, chaos could return. He drew on every reserve of strength, every shred of ingenuity. Adjusting the device and his own pulse in perfect synchrony with Seraphine, he unleashed a concentrated wave of energy directly at the center of the assault. The effect was immediate and absolute. The attackers were hurled backward, incapacitated, their weapons rendered useless. The corridors beyond the chamber were cleared. The palace trembled as the last echoes of the strike faded, and a stunned silence followed. Kale collapsed to his knees, trembling from exhaustion. The device sparking at his side was now useless, its energy spent entirely in the act of saving the kingdom. Seraphine lowered her massive wings, breathing heavily but steadily. She bent her head, bringing her eyes level with Kale. The look she gave him was unmistakable: recognition, trust, and gratitude. The royal family, once skeptical, now knelt in astonishment. They had witnessed the impossible. A human had not only healed their dragon lady but had led her in battle, using courage and intelligence to save the kingdom. Kale's chest heaved, every breath a mix of relief and disbelief. He had risked everything, and yet he had succeeded. The attackers lay defeated outside, and Seraphine stood, strong and vibrant, her golden eyes scanning the chamber. She lifted her wings once, a display of raw power and vitality. "You saved us," one of the dragon princes said, voice trembling with awe. "A human saved the dragon lady and the palace." Kale looked around, exhausted but unbroken. He realized in that moment what it meant to be human. Courage, ingenuity, and moral determination could challenge even the most impossible odds. Machines, spells, and dragons themselves could fail, but humans could rise, adapt, and conquer in ways nothing else could. Seraphine lowered her massive head again, letting Kale touch her forehead gently. The royal family watched in stunned silence. This small gesture sealed an unspoken bond between human and dragon, a bond that would alter the course of history. Kale knew the battle wasn't over forever, threats would come again, but he had proven something extraordinary. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not secondary. Humans could heal, fight, and triumph where others could not. And as he looked into Seraphine's glowing eyes, he understood. This was only the beginning. The palace was quiet now, though the air still hummed faintly with residual energy. The attackers had fled or been incapacitated, the outer gates sealed once more. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, glinting off Seraphine's restored scales, each one vibrant and alive. Kale Marin sat on the edge of a stone platform, exhausted, his palms still tingling from the energy he had channeled. His muscles ached, his breath came in ragged gasps, but a deep satisfaction filled him. He had survived. Seraphine had survived. And the kingdom had survived. The royal family approached cautiously. Their expressions had softened from awe to something warmer, gratitude, humility, and a new respect that shimmered through the tension of the last hours. The dragon princes and princesses stepped beside their mother, their gazes fixed on Kale with disbelief and admiration. "You, a human, saved her," one whispered, voice trembling. "You risked your life. For her. For all of us." Kale shook his head, trying to downplay it, but he could feel the truth of their words. He had been scared. He had doubted himself. But fear had not stopped him, it had sharpened him, forced him to think faster, act smarter. That was what being human meant. Courage under pressure, intelligence under fire, determination when hope seemed impossible. Seraphine stepped forward, her massive frame casting a shadow over him. She lowered her head so that her golden eyes met his directly. Kale felt a shiver run through him, not of fear but of recognition. She blinked slowly, almost deliberately, before pressing the tip of her snout gently against his chest. It was a gesture of trust, respect, and acknowledgement. He had healed her, yes, but she had also accepted him as an equal in that moment. The healers moved closer, checking her over one last time. Each nod they gave Kale carried silent approval. The device he had brought lay idle, still sparking faintly, a reminder of the danger he had faced, and the human ingenuity that had turned potential failure into triumph. The royal family murmured among themselves, clearly debating what this meant. Humans had been part of their lives before, but never like this. Never as the deciding force in the life of a dragon. Kale finally rose to his feet, though each movement reminded him how close he had been to exhaustion. He looked around the chamber, seeing the scars of battle, the broken chairs, the scorched walls, the faint trails of golden energy etched into the stone. They were proof of the struggle, yes, but also of survival, of human resilience. He felt a quiet pride. He had risked everything, but it had been worth it. Seraphine lowered herself slightly, folding her wings gracefully. She rumbled softly, a sound that resonated in Kale's chest. Then, unexpectedly, she nudged him toward the royal gallery, as if urging the family to recognize what he had done. The king stepped forward, his usual regal composure giving way to honest awe. "Kale Marin," he said, voice steady but filled with emotion, "you have not only healed our dragon lady, you have saved the kingdom itself. Your courage, your intellect, your human heart, have changed everything." Kale bowed slightly, a simple gesture compared to the magnitude of the moment. He had never sought recognition or praise. He had acted because it was necessary. But hearing the king's words, seeing the gratitude in every eye before him, he allowed himself a small, tired smile. Humans could do extraordinary things. They had done so today. The dragon princes and princesses gathered closer, some brushing their wings against the stone floors, others flexing claws in silent approval. Seraphine's gaze lingered on Kale for a moment longer. Then slowly she rose, spreading her wings wide. A low hum of energy filled the chamber, radiating warmth and vitality. Kale felt the pulse of life beneath him once more, strong, steady, and alive. Later, as the palace quieted and the royal family began planning recovery and defenses, Kale walked through the gardens with Seraphine following, her massive form casting a long shadow over the fountain. He looked up at the twin suns, now high in the sky, and breathed in the sharp air. The city beyond the palace walls was waking, the lower districts alive with humans going about their lives, unaware of how close the kingdom had come to disaster. Kale realized then that humans could achieve the impossible, not because they had dragons or machines but because of what they carried inside: courage, intelligence, morality, and determination. In the face of overwhelming odds, these traits had allowed him to bridge worlds, heal legends, and inspire awe. The palace would remember this day, but so would he. Every choice, every calculated risk, every ounce of effort had been a testament to humanity. A message arrived from the king, granting Kale the title Warden of the Bond, an honor reserved for those who united humans and dragons in trust and strength. Kale accepted humbly, knowing it was more than a title. It was a recognition of what humans could achieve when they refused to give up, even against impossible odds. Seraphine nudged him gently, as if confirming that the bond between them was permanent. Humans and dragons had stood together in a moment of crisis, and it had been human courage and ingenuity that had tipped the scales. The lessons of the day would be told across DracoWars Prime. A human could heal what seemed impossible, face danger that even dragons feared, and inspire change that would last generations. As Kale stood in the palace gardens, Seraphine by his side, he knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would come again, threats would rise, and impossible odds would appear. But humans would endure. Humans would fight. Humans would rise. And they would triumph. In that quiet, sunlit moment, Kale understood the truth of it all. Courage, intellect, and determination were not measured by size, species, or status. They were measured by choice. And he had chosen to rise. The kingdom was safe. The dragon lady lived. And humans had proven beyond doubt that they could shape the future.